Peace, everybody. This is Marc Lamont Hill, and I am honored to be on the greatest podcast in the land, The Tightrope, with Tricia Rose and Cornel West. Make sure you check it out every single week. Part of the joy I've been having is arguing with these conservatives, man. The last couple of weeks, I've had on my show some of these people who are the open enemies of critical race theory, the people who are out here battling and fighting a theory that they haven't read or that they don't understand.
That's exactly. That's the thing.
I mean, it's just an excuse to be against any kind of education that might produce a consciousness of racial justice and equality in this country. Any idea that asks people to be self-interrogating about the capacity for them to have contributed to other people's suffering, whoever it may be, but especially if it's Black folk.
Yep.
They're gonna find a way to weaponize it. It don't matter what letter alphabet you put, CRT, you could put any letters in there. It's an appalling commitment. It's really an appalling commitment.
I saw a post. They quickly deleted it, but it was from the Texas Public Policy Forum, where they said 18 ways to know if critical race theory is sneaking into your curriculum. 18 words to look for.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I saw that.
I mean, one of the words was like identity. Another one was justice. I mean, it was like you can't say anything, or else it's a red flag to them. And it's working. The sad part is it's working.
Ignorance is very malleable.
The ignorance and the indifference go hand in hand.
Right.
You know what I mean? So even the Black conservatives, you say, well, have you read page 44 of Carter G. Wood's Miseducation of the Negro? He says he wants highly educated Negroes to fall in love with Black people. Now, can you show me how your love of Black people is enhanced by trashing critical race theory? I want to hear that argument. I want to see the evidence. Same thing with Clarence Thomas. You say you in love with Black people, but at the same time, you can gut the Voting Rights Act. I want to see how your love of Black people is connected to undermining the possibility of Black folk having equal citizenship and equal access and so forth. I'm open to the argument, but I ain't no fool. I want to hear it. And if it looks like it's not tied to the love of Jamala, Letitia, and my mama and your granddaddy, then we got a problem. Right. We got a deep problem. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's one way you try to get at them, because they act as if they still really have this deep care and concern. You say, well, I'm not feeling that. I don't see that. I'm not convinced of that.
Yeah.
And you see it over and over again. And the careerism, the opportunism, the narcissism begins to take over. The cronyism in high places. They want visibility. They want some kind of publicity. And you say, wait a minute. Right. You got the same gangster orientation as some of the other folk that you're critical of. You better check yourself.
Yes, indeed. Before you wreck yourself, we're going to go back to 90s hip hop.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself. That's the truth. Expose yourself. But the thing about it, though, Brother Mark, is that your love for Black people is so deep and profound, man, that you are willing to ensure that a lifting of every voice, the very anthem of our people, is real. And then so that all of these different voices, the folk defending Cosby, we were talking about before. Okay, what kind of argument you got to defend Bill Cosby? Okay, he a genius, but he's a gangster. He's been involved in this rape act. Well, no, we don't have enough evidence. How much more evidence do you need? Please.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's just be honest about it.
Right. The two of you share a quality that I cannot say I have quite as much as you two, which I really admire, which is, y'all just keep going right to the places where people are acting the craziest. And you try to make them sensible. I'm like, this ain't I'm going home. I'm like, I've seen Cornel on the stage debate, positions that I could not even listen to without having to get out of my seat and like go for a walk in the back of the room. Mind you, to actually try to say something civilized. You too, Mark, you're dealing with the Palestinian issues and the conflicts there where some people on both sides get so irrational that you can't have a conversation. This whole, Bill Cosby scenario, the critical race theory situation. What, I mean, I'd love to hear Cornel answer this too, but let's start, since you're our guest today, with you. What, drives you into that fire with so much, it's not just about, you're not trying to fight, you're trying to get some light in the city. What drives you there? How do you do that?
Some of it is just my disposition, right? My father was like this. There's just a certain way that I engage the world. My brothers and my mama, not so much. My mom has a different approach to such matters. She would shut that stuff down. That gear kicks in a little bit later for me. I got a little bit of both in me, but part of it is a disposition thing. Part of it is a belief, to a fault even, that even when someone takes a position that I find repulsive, that they're operating from a place. And I want to understand the place that they operate from. And I believe that there's no way to appeal to them at their core where we can find a common ground. I believe, again, to a fault, that people operating that they're negotiating in good faith. Not everybody is. And that's something I have to kind of remind myself of sometimes when I'm debating some of these conservatives, particularly the ones that Cornel was just talking about, the opportunists, the cynical ones, the people who are just trying to get on or get up. But I try to believe that people can be persuaded by a good argument, that we can speak to people's values, to people's needs. I remember reading an essay. It wasn't an essay, actually. It was an interview with Cornel, maybe about 20, 25 years ago. And someone asked Cornel how he would engage a Ku Klux Klan member. Is it even possible to do that? And the first thing Cornel didn't say was, I ain't going to talk to a Klan member. He said, well, first I would start with a text that they would understand. They're Klan members and they're Christian, they're Baptist. So I can start with their own biblical text and appeal to that to make their argument. And I said, well, damn, if he can do that, then I can start somewhere. For years in my media career, I would debate Bill O'Reilly on TV. And I always told people, always say, well, why do you debate Bill O'Reilly? And I said, well, my goal has never been to persuade Bill O'Reilly. I don't think he's persuadable because I don't think he has an investment in being persuaded, right? But the people watching Bill O'Reilly can be persuaded. The people watching it as text. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to consume. Never in the history of cable news has anybody said, you know what? You got a point. I was wrong. Let's go to commercial, right? Yeah. You're going to drill down on that point.
Here, take my show. Take my show.
Exactly. Ain't going to happen. But the people watching can. So part of it for me is when I'm engaging people who are different, part of it is the good faith belief that they may be persuaded, but it's also belief that the broader community can be persuaded by that. Mm-hmm. And I'd rather err on that side than to err on the other side of presuming that no one is movable or persuadable or shapeable, and that I have to stay in my own silo and we don't expand our freedom movement. We don't expand the boundaries of our community. Mm-hmm. And I think part of it is because I've been successful at it, not in any grand way. But there are times where I'm debating when I used to be on Fox News, which I wouldn't do anymore because I think it's become a different thing than it was 20 years ago. But when I'd be on Fox News and people would write me a letter and say, I'm a lawyer or I'm a judge or I'm a teacher. And you made an argument that persuaded me to think about immigration differently, to make me think about marriage equality differently. And I think those things matter in the same way that teaching at Brown or Harvard or Union or Temple, what we do in our classroom may seem like it doesn't matter, but then 10 or 20 years later, that student might be, especially in these elite institutions, may be the decision makers, and they may remember Carter G. Woodson. They may remember Du Bois. They may, they may remember bell hooks. And at that moment, that's when it matters. And so for me, it's playing that long game, knowing that the bulk of it ain't gonna matter, but something will. And that's what the Prisoner of Hope is about, right? It's about that slice of people who will.
Right.
That's exactly right, brother. That's eloquence. That's wisdom speaking right there, brother. Ain't no doubt about it. But Sister Tricia, how would you answer your own question?
Well, see, that slice y'all talking about, that particular slice is too far for me because I get so doggone frustrated. I mean, I can stay rational. I've had, been in those situations. But there's something about for what I experience as, I'm not going to cast aspersions on any other human beings, but what I experience as just so disrespectful of people I care about that I don't want to even give them any more time engaging with me. It feels like they're taking something from me. and wasting my time, right? Because I don't believe those people are listening properly. Now, you're right when you say their audience is potentially, but there's a lot of groups of people who need persuading. So I'm gonna let y'all handle that slice, which is the real far slice. Like you were in a debate, Cornel, with Dinesh D'Souza. I can't remember. I mean,
Yeah.
who, Lord, it's just, I can't. It's just something about my personality. I don't know. I can't explain it. But so that's why it doesn't mean I won't have an argument, with people who I fundamentally disagree with and try to persuade whoever their audience is. But you all are particularly good at, going in on those hard issues and cleaving open space. And that's a certain thing. Now I have fire and I can do, there's other spaces, I definitely am the person to call, I'm not saying there's no place to call me, but that space, I really do think the two of you are very special in this way. And it's not that other people are just avoiding the difficulty. It's that you all have a certain gift about how to continue to engage with that kind of, extreme opposition. Right. That's really important. So, I mean, I really admire both of you on that skill and talent. It's really a gift.
I'll say this, the challenge with it though, for me, is that when you engage in those spaces, you take so many hits that you don't outwardly necessarily show.
Right.
But it hurts. I think about, there's no way you to speak out on behalf of Palestinians and not be called anti-Semitic. Now, there are people who are anti-Semitic and there are people who are not. And we can be principled and be very mindful to not fall into anti-Semitic tropes and narratives and practices and rhetoric. And we have to be careful and we have to self-correct and apologize when we make mistakes. But at the same time, if you're consistent on this issue, some people are going to say some stuff. And as someone who has a deep and profound love for my Jewish brothers and sisters, it hurts, right? But you got to endure anyway. For the last few days, I've been talking about this Cosby stuff, and to see the amount of, and it's all Black men just about, talk about how I'm an agent and a snake, and I don't love Black people because I'm attacking Bill Cosby, as if Bill Cosby is kind of the proxy for Black liberation. It's a bizarre sort of logic, but because we love our people so much, when it comes from our people, it's even more profoundly challenging. And so we still fight in those areas, man. But I got to tell you, that's the most challenging part for me, is that I still take it personally. I haven't developed is the skill to not be deeply hurt.
Right.
By those things. People say don't take it personally. I'm a person. Of course I'm gonna take it personally. And I don't know how not to, and we have to fight. And so for me, it's always a struggle to fight through that and to negotiate that.
Well, I mean, part of it is, Mark, you're not attacking them personally because you don't agree with them. You're trying to have them talk about Bill Cosby. Right. As soon as they don't like your position, it becomes about you. And so, of course, your feelings are hurt. Same thing happens to Cornel. People just start attacking him because they don't want to attack the argument. They want to tell you what kind of person he is, according to them, rather than to say, well, here's the argument. See, that's why I don't mess with it. See, to me, we're not going to stay on the argument, y'all. I got stuff to do. I got people at home. I got to talk to Andre. I got things to do.
That's a wise position.
Anyway, Cornel, what would you do? What's your sense of this?
No, but Brother Andre is very much like us, though. That brother, he's got a patience, he got a love, he got a sensitivity to folk who he deeply disagrees with.
Yeah, but he can do it.
He can do it as well. No, it's true. But no, I think part of it, Joe, is, every human being has a certain pricelessness, and you don't want to lose sight of it because they made in the image of a God, and they have the capacity to change. So that even with the brothers with Bill Cosby, you say, well, you're talking about, but let's just understand, what do you see in Bill Cosby that allows you to invest that much? He's a genius. You're absolutely right. He's a comic genius. What else? It was a force for good in the 80s on TV. You're absolutely right. He was a pioneer in Hollywood. You're absolutely right. We could have wonderful conversations about all of those. Now, let's just assume that your daughter and your sister were on the other edge of what was going on when he was not on the stage. All of a sudden, you'd have a different view now. So you got to be able to separate how they invest in Cosby on the one hand, but then want to be indifferent and callous to the sisters who are victimized in ways that are criminal, whether the law calls it into question or not.
Right.
And most brothers would have to admit they don't want their sisters, they don't want their daughters to be on the other end of what was going on when he's off the stage too often. They got to acknowledge that. If they don't acknowledge that, then you don't really have a conversation. You know what I mean?
Right. But what they do, and, Mark, I don't know if you want to jump in here, but what they do is identify with the vilified, lynched black man, right? The black man falsely accused, because it's so profound as a legacy that they become, and their own patriarchy and their own misogyny, right? Because I think for them not to be able to imagine that 30 plus women could not have conspired from all walks of life to bother taking down Bill Cosby. Who would care that much to make up that kind of a lie about Bill Cosby? What was he about to do, that was so important that he had to be, conspired around? So just that don't make no sense. So you have to have a certain kind of misogyny at the core in order to attach your own identity to that kind of a figure, when there's so many black men you could attach yourself to. Anyway, so I think that's part of the puzzle too, Cornel.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's a huge part of the puzzle. And I think that's what again, engaging them, we have to figure out where they're starting from and what their points of reference are in order to even have this conversation. I think I find it so profoundly disturbing for multiple reasons. But one is the person that they're, as we say, caping for, the person that you're riding the hardest for, is a person who has demonstrated such utter contempt in the last 20 years for you, right? I mean, I watch people in the most vulnerable economic conditions, the people, the Taniqua or Talisha Muhammad that he talked about with those that he called crap names, the people who he said are lascivious, the people he said are sexually indecent, ironically enough, right? In the early 2000s, people he demanded that they pull their pants up. The people at Spelman College, he said when he said black men are sending their sperm out everywhere. I mean, all this kind of language, right? Saying that when black men get shot by the police when stealing pound cake, if they weren't stealing the pound cake, they wouldn't get shot anyway. I mean, this is the rhetoric and the language that he's using, and it's these very people who he's offered such contempt for, who are defending him the hardest. Hey there. Thank you for joining us on The Tightrope. For the full episode, please visit us at www.thetightrope.pod.com. We'll see you soon.